Hi everyone, Julie here and welcome back to the YouTube channel. This week I'm going to have a little bit of creative play with some blur and double exposure, and I'm going to do that in DxO Nik Analog Effex. Now straight off the bat I'm going to say that this is not going to be for everybody. If you can't stand a little bit of creative blur in your images, then this might not be for you. However, if you love to experiment and play and toy around with analog effects and making something a little bit more artistic and creative, then this might be just up your alley. So I'm going to start with this image, which already has a whimsy element to it. I had my model Jolie with some tulle and we were throwing it around in front of a big industrial fan. So we already have a little bit of creative blur and movement, but I want to take it a step further. So I'm going to go into Nik Collection into Analog Effects. Okay, so there's a lot of different things that we could play with in here. There is lens distortion, there is bokeh, so we could make a little bit more soft and blurry while still keeping her face in frame. Then we can start playing with things like zoom and rotate, motion blur, double exposure, etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump down to double exposure. Now that uses the same image as its double exposure, and you can play around with that. Or if you click on the little plus here, now I have another image that I took in the same set, which is a slightly different pose, and I can play around with that. I can make it larger. I can twist and turn it. I think I sort of want her head about the same size. And you can just grab the little anchor point in the middle and bring it around. Okay, so I've now got those. So I can bring the exposure down a little bit. The balance is currently, I'm just going to make this one a little bit smaller. The balance is currently set 50-50, but I can bring it so that there's not as much of the secondary image brought to balance. So I'm just gonna maybe do about 25 thereabouts. Okay, so I'm gonna jump back up. I've got zoom and rotate blur. Now this is only going to affect your base image. So I'm going to bring that circle up because I still want most of her face recognizable as a face. And I'm just going to play around with the zoom strength because I still want most of that. I want to be able to tell what it is that I'm looking at. So the next one that I'm going to put in is motion blur, and I'm going to change the shape of that because I want it longer than it is wider. I'm just going to minimize what I'm not working on so that it makes it a bit easier. So I can adjust the blur strength. Do I want more blur? Do I want less blur? Play around with that. If I want to go back up to the top one, I can play around. Now I can spin that blur if you want to by grabbing one of the control points, and I can pop that around that way. So I've got a little bit of motion happening on the blur as well. That's a really good thing about the zoom and rotate. So next we've got light leaks, and there's a whole heap of fabulous light leaks that you can play with here. Ooh, I like that one. You can use a control point, so you can have a control point as to where you want the light leak to be. You can change the strength of the light leak, so if you don't want it so strong. Now if you click on here, you've actually got different options. So these are the soft ones. There's some crisp light leaks. So if I clicked on those, then I've got, I'll bring it back down so you can see it. So you've actually got a little bit of definition in the light leaks there. So there's different ones that you can play with. They're pretty cool. And then you've got dynamic light leaks, which could really work here as well. Now I've got it turned up quite strong at the moment, but only because I want to see what I'm sort of working with. I can always turn these down. Now I'm really torn here between this one and the soft one, which I really liked as well. Ooh, it does make for a dilemma. I think I really actually like that dynamic one. Just added to the movement. That's really nice with the coming in. So there's lots of different options you can play with. I could play around for ages and ages just trying to figure out which light leak. And I guess this is where you need to draw the line yourself and decide what you do like, what you don't like, and just make a decision. So I think I'm going to stick with that one, but I'm going to leave it at about, I've got it on 49%. So the next thing that you can do, you can add dirt and scratches. So perhaps you want to add a little bit of a grunge element to it, make it look like it's dirty, or there's dust and fluff that you can use. You can have scratches. These work really well in conjunction with the photo plate. You don't have to use them, but they can add another element to your image. For me today, it's not going to be something that I want, but it is something there that you can play with. So I'm going to jump in now and have a little look at the photo plates, because these you can use them without the light leaks. You can use them without the dust and scratches. You can use them just on their own, and they can add a definite element to your images, especially if you go for something like the concrete ones, although they do add in more of that dirt and debris type thing. The corroded one, again, that can be interesting to play with. You can have this with or without the dust and scratches. You can adjust the light. So I'm going to go for something like this one. Maybe, maybe not. I'm going to go back to that one. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the strength right back so that you don't have it quite so strong. So you can add a control point. You can play around with the texture strength in various areas. Oops. The You can change the size of the control point. You can change the strength and things like that within that control point. You can play around with the diffusion. You can play around with the texture strength and stuff like that. So there's a lot that you can play with in here. Just to keep going as I work my way down, you've got a lens vignette that you can add. I'm just going to close some of these off. So with the lens vignette, you can have it as a circle or a rectangle, and it's literally just putting the darken edges on your image. You can swap from circle to rectangle. You don't have to have a circle, you could have it as an oval, and you can of course adjust your size. The amount, if you go all the way to the right, that makes it white. If you go all the way to the left, it makes it black. So if you want to add just a bit of a vignette to your image, you can do that. Then we've got film types, which is another one that I really like to play with. You've got warm, you've got cool, you've got subtle, you've got black and white neutral, and black and white toned. So these can be really interesting. You can get a real sort of beautiful selenium or copper look to your images. Again, you can change the fade. You can change the strength of the toning on your images. You can add grain. You can change the hardness of the grain. Okay, so that's what I started with. And this is what I've got now. So I do think that it's getting a little light. I'm going to come in and I'm going to darken it up just a touch. I could add frames to it, but I'm not looking to add a frame because I've got the vignette there. I could do multi-lens. I can't say that this is one of my favorites. I have played with it, so you can do like 3 and it splits your image up. Although that's kind of funky doing it that way. There's different aspects that you can do to it. I do kind of like that one, but I'm not a huge fan of the multi-lens, I must admit. So now that I've got where I am here, so let's have another look before. So that's where I started from, that's where I've come from. So running through the list, I had my basic adjustments, I added some bokeh, I did that zoom and rotate blur just on the original image. I also did a bit of motion blur to get some more blur happening with the fabric. I added the light leaks, I added a photo plate, I added a dark lens vignette, I added a black and white toned film type to it, and I adjusted my levels and curves. And this brings me to my final image. I can still go back to Photoshop, I can still add various actions and presets and things like that over the top. And what I can do, so if I just save this. Okay, so now that we're back in Photoshop, I can continue playing with this image. So I can leave it as it is, obviously. I could change the blend mode. So if we change it to something like lighten or screen, or overlay, you will get a little bit of the new image, or you can drop the opacity down. So you still get the original shining through. So you can leave it at normal and you can drop your opacity as well. So it's up to you which way you want to go and how much blur you want to add to it. I did also add a action iris by Fine Art Actions over the top, and I'm quite happy with the flow and the creative movement that I have got on this. If I wanted to continue this further, I could take another couple of images from the same series, and I have more images. I had about 10 or 12 images, and I could repeat those and overlay them, so I could actually get quite a bit of movement happening. And you don't have to keep it in the same spot either. The other thing that you can do, especially if it is a little more on the see-through side, is you could then spin that and have more movement that way. If you want to, you could take the base image, do a copy, and put that over the top as well. So there's an awful lot of things that you can play with in here. I'm going to just go back to how it was originally. So I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video interesting in some of the things that you can do with your images beyond regular straight photography by using some really cool analog effects with Nik. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye for now.